This comic book number 101 begins by telling the story of what happened more than 10,000 years ago when Zordon had Rita tied up ready to sentence her to life imprisonment in a container and launch her into space. We all know that at that moment Rita cast a spell, and although they managed to lock her in the container, even so, Zordon was trapped between time and space. The important detail is that in that conversation they had, Rita told Zordon that the war was not over and that his power was going to grow, and she was going to defeat him. After 10,000 years, in the present, after the Rangers finish the Death Ranger thing, Zordon wakes up after having a nightmare about what Rita told him at that time. Because of this, Zordon has a bad feeling and tells Alpha to scan the moon again. In past events, the moon had been invisible, and this is why Zordon's feeling about the moon is strange. In Promethea, the Rangers are training in a training room that Matthew managed to get. In this training, the Rangers form two teams, and the training is paint-based to detect who has been left out. In a not-so-important fact, we can see that Aisha and Matthew have had a bit of a romantic moment, and then the Green Ranger asks Kimberly if Aisha has a partner. After training, Billy brings the news that the moon has reappeared, and even though this is supposed to be good news, still, Billy is worried as it means something has changed. The Rangers return to the command center, and as Zordon begins to talk about the moon, at that moment, they receive an emergency signal. Incredibly, it was a signal from Lord Zed asking the Rangers for help. Although the Rangers think it is a trap, they still feel they must go and see what is going on. After the Rangers morphed, they used the Dragonzord with the new modification to fly so they could reach the moon undetected. Despite not wanting to be detected, even so, the enemy that was waiting for them on the moon was able to detect them and sent putty patrollers to stop the Dragonzord. These putty patrollers are different, they are destroyed and then turned into cement. With this they managed to crash the Dragonzord on the moon, and there we can see the command center of the villains. The Rangers start to see that many putty patrollers are coming, and along with them is Golder, but then they realize that Golder is not the leader, he is trying to run away from these new putty patrollers. Golder begins to desperately ask the Rangers for help, and the Rangers use the power blaster to destroy most of the patrollers. Golder tells the Rangers that she is coming and that she is going to kill Lord Zed, then the Green Ranger hits Golder and knocks him out. Tommy tells the Rangers that even though they think it's a trap, they should go to the castle to see what's going on, so they should start fighting the putty patrollers to clear a path. Billy decides to try to repair the Dragonzord to have an escape plan, and Tommy asks Adam to watch Billy's back and keep an eye on Golder. The Rangers start fighting all the new putty patrollers, and Tommy asks Rocky and Aisha to go to the castle to look for Zed, so they both use teleportation to get to the castle faster. While Billy tries to repair the Dragonzord, Adam continues to battle with the putty patrollers to watch Billy's back, and at that moment Golder wakes up very scared. Adam senses that there is something Golder hasn't told him, so he asks him to see if he can get any information out of him. Inside the castle, Rocky and Aisha come across Lord Zed's throne, which is split in half. In that place we can also see that there is Finster, Rita's faithful servant and the creator of the monsters. Outside in the battle, we can see that Golder joined the Rangers and also starts attacking the putty patrollers. Then, Billy tells Tommy that Golder told them that they should go to the caves below the castle since that is where Lord Zed is. Tommy tries to tell Rocky and Aisha to go to the caves, but they have a different problem in the castle. The throne that was split in half turned into a monster, and now they must fight it while Finster enjoys what is going on. Because of this, Kimberly, Matthew and Tommy go to the caves to look for Lord Zed, but they realize that it is very dark, so Kimberly shoots an arrow to give some light to the place. At that moment, they realize something that they had never thought would be real, and that is that when the arrow fell to the ground, they could see the body of Lord Zed almost lifeless and asking for help. On top of Lord Zed's body was Rita Repulsa welcoming the Rangers with a very different physique. Apparently, Rita came back so powerful that Lord Zed couldn't handle her, and that's why Golder was filled with fear. We can see that Rita has different clothes. Her scepter is now black, covered with red cracks, and on her head, she has something similar to what her father Master Vile has. Another important thing to note is that in the background we can see another being in the darkness with glowing blue eyes and a face full of cracks. Apparently, Rita returned with Evelyn and much more power, just as she had told Zordon 10,000 years ago. The Rangers are over the moon at the castle, and Rita has Lord Zed lying on the ground in agony. She notices that among the 3 Rangers there is also the Green Ranger, and she tells him that the dragon power belongs to her. She also tells him that she would like to know what the Green Ranger's allegiance to her power is now. Kimberly interrupts her and tells Rita that out of her trash can her fashion style still hasn't improved, but Matt very innocently tells Kimberly that he thinks Rita looks great. Kimberly gets very angry and quietly tells Matt that she knows Rita looks amazing, but she's not going to admit it in front of her. Rita recognizes Kimberly's voice and starts to greet her, but tells her that her name is no longer Rita, it's now Mistress Vile. Tommy tells her that he doesn't care what her name is now, what matters is that she stays away from Lord Zed. Mistress Vile with all her arrogance challenges and threatens him. She also tells him that she has everything he needs just a step away. Meanwhile, she continues to beat Lord Zed with her foot, and he continues to agonize. Despite being in agony, Lord Zed tells Mistress Vile that she is careless for being a power-hungry fool. She tells him that she came to collect everything he owes her for her years of service and for being locked in a dumpster. At that moment, the most unexpected thing happens. Mistress Vile grabs Lord Zed's mask and rips it off his face. The Rangers are shocked and say they must stop this as they think she can kill him. Now, we can see Lord Zed's face, a skeleton-like face that makes him look like a zombie. Mistress Vile tries to attack Lord Zed, but Tommy stops her with his sword, and she easily hits him and throws him far away. Kimberly tries to attack her, but she stops her with her energy while Matt attacks her from behind and manages to pierce her back with the dragon dagger. As a result, Matt is attacked by the monster that accompanies Mistress Vile, and it is so strong that it pushes Matt's head against the wall and breaks his helmet. Mistress Vile tells the Rangers that she too learned to work as a team and now has a new friend accompanying her. Tommy proceeds to call Rocky and Aisha as they need help, and he has already realized how powerful these 2 villains are. On the other hand, Rocky and Aisha were having a battle with a monster that used to be Lord Zed's throne. They both realize that this monster was very strong since it was made of rock, so they make a plan to defeat it using a tactic they had developed in another fight. Both of them separate, and Aisha starts to argue with Finster, who was nearby, the monster gets distracted by the fight and Rocky takes advantage of his carelessness and cuts him in half with his sword. They both leave and say goodbye to Finster, but he starts talking to Squat and tells him that Mistress Vile will finish them off, and if she doesn't, then Vessel will. Meanwhile, Billy is still trying to repair the Dragonzord and Adam tries to help by attacking the new putty patrollers. Adam asks Billy to tell him if he has been able to repair the Dragonzord since the putty patrollers keep showing up, but he gives him the bad news that the Zord is badly damaged, and he won't be able to repair it. Golder interrupts the conversation and tells them that there is another way to escape from the moon. Inside the castle we can see Rocky and Aisha arriving to help the other Rangers, but they are greeted by the Green Ranger Corps. Tommy says that these villains are very powerful and tells the Rangers that they need to get their act together. Then, Lord Zed, despite being in agony, grabs Tommy's leg and tells him that he has no chance of winning against these villains and that retreating is the only option. He also asks him to take him to Zordon so he can help them defeat the new version of Rita. Tommy gives the order to the Rangers to take Lord Zed and get out of there while he and Kimberly keep the villains busy. Still, Matt doesn't understand why they should save Lord Zed while putting the Rangers' lives at risk, but Rocky tells him that they must obey the order Tommy gave them. Matt then lifts Zed on his shoulders while Rocky and Aisha continue to fight with the putty patrollers. Matt notices that Mistress Vile is about to attack Tommy, so when the Rangers leave, we can see Rocky carrying Zed on his shoulders and we can only see Aisha accompanying him. Billy instructs the Rangers where to go as now the plans have changed and the escape transport is Serpentera, Lord Zed's sword. Then, we can see Tommy being strangled by Vessel, then Vessel smashes him against the wall and breaks his helmet. With this we can see the impressive power that this monster has, but in these images, we can also see a green power that is coming out of Lord Zed's scepter. Meanwhile, Mistress Vile keeps hurting Kimberly with her power, and then even though she tries to defend herself, she throws her far away with so much power that it takes away her transformation. Then, we can see that the green power was Matt with Lord Zed's scepter, and he attacked Mistress Vile to help Kimberly. He also tells her to get Tommy to get out of there since it's his turn to save her this time. While Kimberly and Tommy get out of there, Matt stays behind to fight the two villains using Lord Zed's scepter. Inside Serpentera, Billy tries to keep the Zord flying ready to leave, and at that moment Kimberly and Tommy arrive. Aisha and Kimberly want to wait for Matt, but he tells them not to wait for him as he will not go. He then tells Billy that they should leave as the villains are closing in on them. We then get to see Mistress Vile and Vessel get to where the Rangers are, and we also get to see that Vessel already has Lord Zed's scepter. Matt is still trying to convince Billy to leave now, while the villains gather their scepters to launch a great energy towards Serpentera. The impact is so strong that it destroys part of Serpentera's tail, and with this Billy makes the decision to leave despite leaving Matt. The Rangers try to blow up the Zord, but everything is badly damaged, and even though Billy tries to control it, nothing works, and the descent is inevitable. The Rangers crash and much of the Zord is destroyed in the crash. We can now see that Serpentera is in pieces, but despite this they all survive and begin to communicate with Alpha 5. Inside the castle we can see that Matt is on the ground and Vassal stands in front of him, but Mistress Vile tells him to leave him as she has plans with this Green Ranger. She then says that they are now going to go claim their prize. The Rangers arrive at the command center along with Zed and Golder. Then Zed quickly tells Zordon that they can't waste any time as with her has come ruin. Zordon mentions Rita's name, but Lord Zed tells him that she is now called Mistress Vile. He also tells him that, if she gets what she came for, then no one is going to be able to stop her. At that moment, we can see Mistress Vile and Vessel trying to grab the Zeo crystal, but we can also see that the energy is so powerful that Vassal's hand starts to change color. On another planet we can see Zofram in the middle of a very thoughtful war, and he realizes that Zordon is there with him. The two begin a dialogue and Zofram quickly realizes that he is in some sort of dream. After Zordon calls him by his given name Zofram, he gets upset and tells Zordon that his real name is Lord Zed. He grabs Zordon by the collar and asks him for explanations about what is going on. Zordon tells him that he is dying. We then get to see Lord Zed's body in the command center as Alpha 5 and Billy continues to try to help him. Inside Lord Zed's mind, Zordon tells him that the Rangers are trying to save his life. He then explains to him that he has used the command center technology along with the Morphin Grid to connect with his mind. Lord Zed tells Zordon that he is weak for showing mercy, but Zordon tells him there is another reason. He explains to him that a ranger has been taken captive by Mistress Vile and wants to know how she invaded the moon. Lord Zed begins to explain that she arrived very quickly and went through all the defenses like a piece of paper. She was not alone, she came with a companion who was very strong and fought like an Eltarian. Mistress Vile was coming for the Zeo crystal and they had no chance to beat them. This is a death sentence for everyone. Then in the command center we can see the Rangers next to Zordon, who still has a mental connection with Lord Zed. Kimberly is very angry because she feels they must do something soon and she doesn't want to sit idly by. She starts to complain to Tommy, but he tries to explain that they should keep waiting for Zordon as he is looking for the information they need. Aisha starts to support Kimberly and says that they have other Zords they can use. Rocky tries to tell them that won't work as they are also going to be shot down, and Adam backs him up by saying that they should wait until they have a plan. Aisha starts crying desperately and starts running. Adam tries to reach her to comfort her and looks for a way to dialogue with her. Aisha tells him that she is scared as they recently almost lost Jason, Trini and Zach to the Death Ranger. Adam realizes that Aisha likes Matt and now it will be difficult for them to find out if they will be able to have a relationship. On the moon we can see Mistress Vile with the Zeo crystal in her hand, and Squat is very nervous because he thinks that crystal is dangerous. Mistress Vile very angrily asks him to be quiet and tells him that the crystal can't hurt them anymore. She also explains to him that the crystal is a key to open the door to a great unimaginable power. She then asks Squat to take Vessel to Finster's to see if he can repair the arm he hurt pulling the Zeo crystal out of its trap. Mistress Vile also says she has a parting gift for the Rangers. In the lab we can see how Finster is draining Matt's green energy, and at that moment Squat arrives with Vessel. Squat starts telling Finster about all the doubts he has about Vessel and Mistress Vile. He thinks Golder was right since Rita came back very different and Vessel hasn't said a word. Finster tells him that he already made the decision to be on Mistress Vile's side and that Golder has always been too loyal to Lord Zed. He also tells him that he better be on the right side and Mistress Vile's plan comes to fruition. At the command center we can see Billy trying to communicate with Trini, the new Red Ranger of the Omega Rangers. Despite making many attempts, Billy fails to communicate with Trini and says that it must be that she is in unknown space. Kimberly tells him that it wouldn't be the first time they've been ignored and asks Billy why Lord Zed needs to be helped. Billy replies that that's what Rangers do, save lives, even if the other person doesn't deserve it. But Kimberly very angrily replies that it's at the expense of Matt's life and that she's not going to give up until she saves him. Billy tells her that he's not going to give up either since Matt was the one who protected him the first year at school. We then see Grace come in very angrily claiming to Zordon that the Rangers left Matt and the Dragonzord stranded on the moon. She also tells him that this is not the first time he has sent Rangers to die on the moon. This is because the first Ranger team Grace was the leader. Zordon sent them on a mission on the moon and almost all of them died there. Zordon replies to her that this was not the case and that she was the one who gave Matt the morpher. He also tells her that this is a burden he doesn't wish on anyone and hoped he could carry it alone. Grace tells him that we humans are like animals that walk in packs and like to share burdens. In a park we can see Jason talking to Bulk and Skull about some karate classes since they want to learn how to fight. At that moment, we hear a loud explosion and it was a huge monster with some putty patrollers. The monster speaks and says that Mistress Vile sends her greetings to everyone. Then the Power Rangers arrive to battle the monster and they all start fighting. Jason tries to push Bulk and Skull away and tells them that the Rangers have everything under control. It should be remembered that Jason gave up being an Omega Ranger to take a break and also take care of his father. The Rangers begin to fight the monster and quickly realize that they can't pierce its skin since it's made of glass. Tommy tries to use force with several kicks, but this doesn't work, and the monster hits him hard. Aisha tries to help him and Tommy tells her that he is fighting slowly because he is still recovering from the battle they had on the moon. Then we see Kimberly, who is still very angry and wants to end the battle, so she calls her Zord. Kimberly's Zord arrives and launches a strong attack on the monster which causes a big explosion and ends the battle. In the command center, Tommy and Kimberly start arguing since she broke the rules. Kimberly tells him that they can't keep wasting time waiting for Rita to make the monster grow and then keep fighting the Zords until it is destroyed. Every second that passes is valuable time to try to save Matt, who is still suffering. Grace interrupts the discussion to inform them that she had put a tracker on Matt and now he is no longer on the moon, and neither is the Dragonzord. This means that Mistress Vile isn't on the moon either and the monster was just a distraction for her to leave the moon and take Matt with her. Zordon says they don't know where they are, and Grace says they must be somewhere in deep space. Tommy agrees with Kimberly and says enough is enough, they should stop running. Then, Billy gets a signal on his communicator and the red Omegazord can be seen badly destroyed, but he loses the signal. Alpha 5 manages to locate the coordinates of the Omegazord and Zordon tells the Rangers that they must make a tough decision again. The Omega Rangers need their help, but they won't stop Matt's search. The Rangers travel to the coordinates given to them by Alpha 5 and find the Omegazord and realize something strange is going on. They start to hear a very disturbing song and can see someone start to come out of the Omegazord. Alpha 1 is the one who was there waiting for the Rangers as he knew Zordon was going to send them and now he could have his revenge. In space, Rita says that there is never a worse moment than the one in which you discover that, although you gave it your all, it was not enough. In the end, you were still throwaway, broken by those you most wanted to please. We then see how she is saying these words to Matt as she continues to torture him. Rita tries to tell him everything she went through to make him understand that they are both alike, but Matt tells her that he is not like her. Rita tells him that he is still loyal to the Rangers even though they abandoned him, but he believes that if she tells him her story then he will understand that the two of them are alike. A few months ago, after Lord Zed betrayed Rita and locked her in a space trash can just like Zordon had done, a ship appeared looking for this space trash can and had finally found it. Before we see the crew members of the ship, Rita tells the story of her life, in which she says she lived between love and hate. We can see that when she was born, Zordon was present, and her mother gave her a loving upbringing. Then, Her father Master Vile found her and took her away to raise her in darkness. He made her a general, and then Lord Zed ordered her to conquer 1,000 worlds for him. Rita began to grow this army by seeking out beings that were being abandoned or in need of a firm hand. Still, this was not enough, as she was defeated by Zordon. Despite this, she was persistent. She betrayed her mother, but, even so, she too was betrayed by Lord Zed. At that moment, she knew that her father was right. It was enough who she had become, and she had to become more. On the ship, we can see Divatox, a galactic pirate who was with her crew specifically looking for this space trash can. The real reason is that they were looking for Rita, so they opened the canister to find out if she was inside, and they were right. Divatox tests her by telling her that he would like to know how much a witch would cost on the black market, but Rita fights back and tells him not to mistake her misfortune for weakness. Rita is so powerful that she knocks Divatox down with a single blow, but then she confesses that she was only testing her and that she was going to take her to Gamma Vile, Rita's father's planet. On this planet, we see that Master Vile is very happy to have his daughter back and pays Divatox for his work as promised. Despite this, Rita and her father have a brief argument as she tells him that she didn't need his help as she is a survivor, but her father tells her that she is free because of him. Still, Master Vile wants to celebrate his daughter's arrival and that he also has a vessel for Dark Spectre. When Rita hears this, she is very angry as her father keeps trying the same thing and has never achieved anything. She also tells him that because of this her brother Rito Revolto sacrificed himself and now only has half of his brain. His father, very annoyed, shuts her up and tells her not to forget her place as his patience is wearing thin. He then introduces her to the new vessel, and it is Alpha 1. Rita is very angry because she knows it's a lousy idea to have an old Zordon robot for this. Still, Master Vile thinks it's an excellent idea since he says this robot is incorruptible. Then, Alpha 1 takes Rita to his room, and there they have a little conversation. They start reminiscing about their past and how powerful they are. Alpha 1 also says that he had tried to take her down, but Rita tells him that more powerful beings have tried and failed. He then tells her that he was built by a father who rejected him, but then Alpha 1 tells her that her father did choose him to be the vessel. Rita begins to scoff as she knows that the robot does not know what it is to be a vessel. She begins to explain to him that Dark Spectre wants to go through the Morphin Grid but cannot because it is toxic to him. It is for this reason that he is looking for a vessel that will allow him to pass through it, but he will burn the soul of this vessel in the process. He also tells her that Master Vile's love is not worth dying for. Later at the party we can see that they are all gathered to make a toast to the new vessel. Rita and Divatox begin to have a conversation and talk about how foolish Master Vile is for continuing to fail in the search for a new vessel and then acquiring the Zeo Crystal. The next day they go to Planet Infernus, where Dark Spectre is to introduce him to Alpha 1, the new vessel. Rita begins to offer Alpha 1 to work with her and promises to give him freedom. Although this seems like a simple conversation, this moment is key for Alpha 1. They then meet Darkonda, and he tells Master Vile how he dares to come back after all his failures looking for a vessel. Master Vile promises him that this time he will not fail, and Darkonda asks him if the vessel is Rita, but he tells her that she is an old witch. Rita gets upset and wants to fight Darkonda, but her father stops her. Then, Master Vile apologizes to Darkonda and Darkonda lets him in to see Dark Spectre. Here we can see that Dark Spectre's soul is in a lava pit, but at the same time he is controlling another body so he can talk. Master Vile proceeds to introduce him to the new vessel and tells him that Alpha 1 is strong, loyal, willing and has no spirit or conscience. Dark Spectre gets very angry as he says that a robot is not a proper tribute and proceeds to attack Alpha One, who is badly damaged. He then tells Master Vile that his patience has come to an end and he is going to finish him off. Rita interrupts Dark Spectre and tells him that his father is a fool. She tells him that after he gave her everything, yet her father has only given her failure after failure. It is an insult to his greatness, and he is not worthy of the title Vile. Dark Spectre tells her that he knows who she is, that she is a cursed child and not fit to be his vessel. Rita tells him that she is not there to be the vessel, she is there to be the new Vile, which means to be Dark Spectre's new general. Master Vile threatens her and then they start fighting. Rita attacks him first, but Master Vile is very powerful and attacks her back. He also tells her that she was never enough and was just a disappointment. Then, the battle and insults continue, and each is very powerful, but Master Vile is winning the battle. When it looks like Master Vile is going to destroy Rita, he is run through with a sword by Alpha One. Rita then proceeds to take away his memories of that day with her magic, and Alpha One is surprised that she could have destroyed him and didn't. Rita replies to him that she is not like her father, and this is why he helped her, because he knows she is not like her father. Dark Spectre tells Rita that it is a shame that she was tainted before he brought her before him, as she would make an excellent vessel. Rita tells him that she is not a vessel, she is now Mistress Vile. She then explains to Dark Spectre that she was not damaged, she was imbued with the energy of the Morphin Grid, and that will help her get the Zeo Crystal for him. He also tells her that in addition to this he has a vessel that was a great warrior and he can get it, but he must transform her into his new Vile. Dark Spectre agrees, then begins to fill her with great power, and this transforms Rita into Mistress Vile. Now Mistress Vile can feel her new great power, and Dark Spectre gives her the order to find the Zeo Crystal and not fail her. Mistress Vile and Alpha One go to planet Bizark, which is a cold planet that is full of snow. The two begin to have a conversation about how cruel Zordon is for using people for a war that has no end. As they talk, they find the new vessel, which is frozen inside a wall of ice. Mistress Vile says that it is a new tool that will help them take over their new destiny and not to be afraid of it. Back in the present, Rita continues talking to Matt and tells him that she can help him. She tells him that he has been discarded, left behind. She tells him that he is useless, the spare, and asks him if he wants to be enough. She tells him all this as she continues to torture him. We had previously seen the encounter between the Rangers and Alpha One, which was on another planet along with an Omegazord. Specifically, 5 days before this happened, the Omega Rangers were on the ship called the Wraith No. 2. After several stories, the Omega Rangers have changed and now their members are different. Jason is no longer an Omega Ranger, and that is why Trini is the new Red Omega Ranger. To replace Trini as the Yellow Omega Ranger is now Kever, but Zack and Yale stayed the same. If you want to know this entire story about the Omega Rangers, you should watch the complete Death Ranger story that is in this channel. Continuing with the story, we can see that on the ship is Zack starting to train Kever since it is his first time as a Ranger. Trini is supervising the training, and at the end Kever talks about Journey. She was an alien that Trini and Zack had found, but she had the problem that her growth was accelerated, and her life was very short-lived. They both start talking about her and try to console each other as they miss her a lot, and a very awkward moment arises. Trini tells Zack that he was an excellent father, then he tells her that she shouldn't have turned him down when he asked her out at school. Even though he said this in a sarcastic way, still, they both felt uncomfortable, and then Trini confesses to him that she had gone out with Jason, and they had kissed. This came as a shock to Zack, but Yale, Kever and Eleven interrupt them. Then 11 warns them that they are going to reach the planet Casentine and that the Omega Rangers are looking for a supposed trace of the Death Ranger. This planet was one of the places where the Morphin Masters used to live, and it is full of Morphin energy. After 5 days, in the present, we can see the exact moment when the mighty Morphin encountered Alpha 1. Kimberly had already faced this robot, but Adam, Rocky and Aisha had never interacted with it. In the command center we can see that Lord Zed is still asleep and Billy is still overseeing Tommy's recovery. They both start talking about how worried they are that Lord Zed is still there, plus how bad Tommy feels about not going with the other Rangers to help them. Alpha 5 is also tired of continuing to babysit the other villains since they eat so much food and it's driving him crazy. Tommy asks Billy about staying there and not helping the other Rangers, but he tells him that he is more useful there in the command center than fighting outside. Tommy thinks Billy doesn't want to be a Ranger anymore, but Billy replies that he loves being a Ranger and will continue to be one. On the other planet the Rangers start fighting Alpha 1 who attacks Kimberly and Rocky first. Alpha says he already knows Kimberly's moves, but Adam tries to beat him since he doesn't know her moves. Then Aisha attacks him, but Alpha pushes them both away and starts using parts of the Omegazord to build himself a new armor. Alpha begins to say that just as he destroyed the Omega Rangers, he is going to destroy them as well. The mighty Morphin are frightened, but Kimberly tells them not to believe him since he is lying and that they must use his moves since Alpha does not know them. Even though Kimberly tried to distract Alpha and then Aisha attacked him from behind, still, his power is too great and the Rangers are losing the battle. At that moment, the blue Omegazord knocks Alpha down and we can see that Trini and Yale arrive to help the mighty Morphin. Despite this, Alpha tries to steal the blue Omegazord's energy, but the mighty Morphin call their Zords to fuse them with the blue Omegazord and give it more power. This combination forms a very powerful Megazord in order to defeat Alpha 1. Even though the mighty Morphin have many questions about how Yale can control a Zord, they all start to destroy Alpha together. After they destroy all of his armor, Trini proceeds to cut off his head, but tells the Rangers that they must leave before he recharges. The other Rangers don't understand how this could be possible, but Trini tells them that Alpha is a robot enhanced with dark magic and he took Kever and Zack to send them to Mistress Vile. The alert about the Death Ranger's presence on that planet was a trap by Alpha to trap the Omega Rangers. At the command center Lord Zed wakes up, quickly gets up, breaks his bonds and starts walking through the dark corridors of the place. He finally reaches Zordon and Alpha 5, who are very concerned about the situation. Lord Zed tells them that they can be calm since he does not represent a threat to the state of health in which he is and, besides, he is not going to run away from his destiny. On the other planet Alpha 1's head is rebooting as Trini and Kimberly have a conversation. Trini starts to say that Alpha got there and trapped Kever and Zack for a witch named Mistress Vile. Kimberly tells her that it's Rita and she also has Matt. Trini says that Rita is not on that planet, but the others are there for some reason and they are going to force Alpha 1 to tell them. Elsewhere on that same planet, near the ruins of a Masterforge are the new Putty Patrollers which have Zack and Kever tied up. These Putty Patrollers are searching for lost objects near that place and are putting them all together near the Rangers' Morpher. The other Rangers arrive to save Zack and Kever, and start destroying the Putty Patrollers. Then in another place we can see Trini and Kimberly trying to burn Alpha's head to torture him and get information out of him. Even though Alpha is a very advanced robot, he is still a rather naive being and starts talking about things he shouldn't say. Within everything he says, he talks about Mistress Vile, about Dark Spectre and about finding a navigator. All of this he said by threatening Trini and Kimberly, and not by torture. Then they both ask 11 to take them back and they leave before Alpha tries to attack them. Back on the ship, the Omega Rangers get back together and they all hug as one big team. Then the Rangers start talking about the things the putty patrollers were looking for in that place, and Zack presents them with something he found next to his morpher. As we see images of Alpha 1 recovering and sending a message to Mistress Vile about his recent failure, 11 begins to explain the significance of the object Zack found. The object is a navigator to tune the Master Forges to specific coordinates within the Morphin Grid. Basically, it is similar to a GPS and helps to define the path. Then we can see how Tommy and Billy send Lord Zed and the other arrestees in a car to another place. In all this time we can keep reading the message that Alpha 1 was sending to Mistress Vile and told her that due to his short connection with the Omegazord he was able to track the next location of the Rangers, and this time he is not going to fail. On another planet, thousands of years ago, Lord Zed and Rita were fighting, and at that time they did not know each other yet. It was the first time they met, and Lord Zed only knew that Rita was a witch sent by Master Vil. He tells her that she is a delusional witch for daring to come to his land, enchant his soldiers, and kill his generals, all in the name of Master Vil. How dare she attack him if he is the Emperor of Evil? At that moment, he also asks her who she is to challenge him, and she answers that she is Rita Repulsa. Even though she is very powerful, Lord Zed is still stronger and attacks her. He then tells her that he accepts that she is very powerful, but that her loyalty to Master Vil weakens her potential and that she should serve him. Rita replies that Master Vil is her father, basically meaning that she cannot betray him. Still, Lord Zed tells her that she is over him and now their future together has just begun. In the present, at the point of eternity in Safe Haven, the Rangers are still trying to understand what the Master Forge's navigator is. Robot 11 begins to give a very important explanation of what these navigators mean and how they travel through the Morphin Grid. First, he says that the Morphin Grid is constant, the same in all dimensions and time. It is basically a wholeness, and this is why it is possible to travel through the Morphin Grid. However, to travel you must need a mastery of the Morphin Grid, and very few have achieved this without a Master Arch. Every Master Forge has a Master Arch, as that is the gateway to the Morphin Grid. Anyone who can control this can travel to any place, any time, and any dimension. Despite this benefit, it is very dangerous to travel without a navigator, as you can be left floating in the abyss. The navigator provides an anchor to the Master Arch, which gives you a way in and out. Many years ago, the Morphin Masters built Master Arches on many planets that had a strong connection to the Morphin Grid. But a malevolent entity was determined to enter this dimension through these portals and sent numerous invasions to these planets. The results were catastrophic. As a last resort, the Morphin Masters withdrew into the grid where Dark Spectre could not reach them. They then destroyed all the Masters' arches, and it was assumed that all the navigators were also destroyed, but this obviously did not happen. The Rangers quickly realized that, if Rita is looking for a navigator, then she knows she also needs a Master Arch, and the only working one in the entire known galaxy is in Safe Haven. Kevin naively thinks that the Omega Rangers can defeat Rita easily since Zack had told him all about Rita, but Zack himself tells him to stop since they also mention something about a certain Dark. Then, a very furious Tommy tries to warn them that Rita is no longer the same and that he doesn't care how powerful the Omega Rangers are, they are not going to be able to defeat Rita alone. He then asks Billy how fast they can get to Safe Haven, but Grace tells him that he can't go anywhere since the Earth is also a place with a lot of Morphin Grid energy with ruins of the Master's arches. An argument then forms between everyone as the Rangers who are on Earth want to travel to Safe Haven and those who are already there want to stay to help the Omega Rangers. Zordon wants the Rangers to stay on Earth and orders the Mighty Morphin who are in Safe Haven to return to Earth as they must protect it. Tommy and Kimberly join in to tell Zordon that they are not going to lose another friend, but he stops the argument and yells at them saying that enough is enough. He then tells them that he's already given an order and he's going to see that it's carried out. Later, Grace and Zordon have a conversation and she is surprised at Tommy's attitude, but Zordon tells her that he is just scared and doesn't want to lose Matt. He also tells her that even though they are young, they are also soldiers and he recognizes all that you have to go through to be a ranger. That's why he tries so hard to protect them. But Grace tells him that being a ranger comes with the benefits of trauma and guilt. In the end she tells him that he's not trying to protect them, he's trying to protect himself because he's filled with fear. Zordon accepts that he is terrified and explains that Rita was infused with Morphin Grid energy so that she could not be used by Dark Spectre as a vessel and somehow managed to use this to her own advantage. Now, she has the Zeo Crystal, is looking for a navigator and a master arch to bring Dark Spectre to this universe. Because of this, all existence is at risk. In Safe Haven, we can see Trini and Kimberly talking about many things since they had not been able to have time for each other. They both start talking about Kimberly staying to help the Omegas and also about Matt and Aisha's possible relationship. Then they both stop the conversation as a fireball passes through the sky that creates a big explosion. It was Alpha 1 arriving with a troop of putty patrollers to challenge the Omega Rangers, but he knew nothing about the Mighty Morphin. The purpose of Alpha's arrival was to take back the Navigator, but the Omega Rangers greet him with Omegazords and the battle begins. On Earth, in Promethea, Grace tries to talk to Lord Zed, who begins to say that true warriors know when they have lost the battle, but humans are always optimistic. He also tells her that Mistress Vil has the Zeo Crystal, has Vessel and has been empowered by Dark Spectre. Her army is large and deadlier than any, but still the humans think they have a chance to escape total annihilation. Grace tells him that he underestimated humanity and now look where he is. Besides, the Rangers saved his life and if they all work together, then they have a chance since Lord Zed knows Rita well. Despite this, Lord Zed mocks her since she doesn't work together as a team and says that the Rangers only prolonged her inevitable death. He also says that Rita is a monster, and he showed her mercy many times, but now seeks revenge. He says the world is doomed, but he's going to make sure Rita doesn't survive long enough to see his own victory. Grace tells him that's too much confidence for a guy she almost killed just a few days ago. She then thanks him for Serpentera and tells him they're going to put it to good use. In Safe Haven, the battle continues, and the Omegas have split into two teams. Trini and Zack are fighting Alpha 1, while Kever and Yield try to crush the putty patrollers. Trini tells Zack that it's time, then grabs Alpha and starts carrying him towards another location as he starts telling her that she's not as smart as Billy and should never have been a Red Ranger. Kever and Yield continue to fight the putty patrollers who are very clingy. Alpha 1 manages to escape the Red Omegazord's hand and then tries to open it while Trini proves to him that she was always out of the Zord. She calls the Mighty Morphin, who arrive with their Zords to destroy all the putty patrollers. Meanwhile, Alpha keeps trying to absorb the power of the Omegazord, but Zack tells her that he put up a firewall and then launches an energy attack on her. Back on Earth at Jason's house, the front doorbell rings and his father asks him to open the door. The person standing in the doorway was Tommy, who started telling Jason everything that was going on. He also tells him everything that happened to Matt and that he feels guilty for inviting him to the fight. Despite this, Jason tries to make him understand that Matt did what he himself would do in that position, sacrifice himself for others. At Promethea, Lord Zed starts talking to a security guard, who thinks he can make fun of him for being locked behind those energy bars. Lord Zed shows him that he is not afraid of pain and that in his life he has been through pain he could never have imagined. He then grabs him by the neck and breaks through the energy bars, ignoring all the pain this causes him. Grace and Torona, who was also a ranger on Zordon's first team, heard the red alert and ran to see what was going on. They both find to their surprise that Lord Zed had escaped and was holding something in his hands. What he had in his hands was a morpher that was originally meant for rangers but was modified meant for something different. This morpher had Lord Zed's Z on it and he activated it saying,
"It's morphing time!"
After Lord Zed became a ranger, Grace and Torona were confused as they did not know how he had obtained a morpher. Then Lord Zed explains to them that he placed a device in Zordon's command center to drain all his power and steal it for himself. With this he was able to create his own morpher and feels that now no one can stop him. Grace tries to give Torona orders to leave and shut the whole place down, but he doesn't want to leave her alone. She tells him that Zed was the evil emperor before all this, so he is capable of anything. After that, Zed shows them his new power and attacks them both by throwing awesome energy. In Safe Haven, we can see Alpha 1 has been destroyed and Robot 11 has been slowly disarming it. Despite this, Alpha 1 keeps trying to power up his system, but 11 tells him to stop as it will overload his circuits and be harmful to him. Then 11 apologizes to him for having him in that situation, but Alpha tells him that he has nothing to apologize for as he too once had a master that he had to serve. Then 11 tells him that he now has another new master and that it would be wise for them to talk about that new master. Alpha 1 feels this as a threat, so he tells 11 that he does not have the ability to feel fear and that when he is free, he will use his body. Then 11 shows him a new body that can be for him but tells him that they must start with the interrogation. Meanwhile, in another room are Trini and Zack watching everything that 11 is doing with Alpha 1. Trini feels bad about what they are doing as she thinks that even though Alpha is evil, still, he is a conscious being and knows that Zordon would never have allowed that. Zack tells her that Zordon is not there to tell them what to do and made it clear to them that they are on their own side. He also tells Trini that she can't guess, she's the leader for a reason. Trini tells her that red is only a color and that they are both in this together. The two are very close and have a moment of romance which doesn't last long as Zack tells her it's hard to believe in that right now. Trini apologizes to him for not telling him what happened between her and Jason, but Zack tells her that's none of his business. Then Trini asks him, "What if I want it to happen?" At that moment they are both interrupted by Aisha, who tells them that Kimberly is trying to call Tommy, so they are soon to leave. Back on Earth at the juice bar are Tommy and Jason about to fight in training form and the two are having a conversation before they start. Tommy thanks Jason for taking him along to train and Jason asks him about Kimberly. Tommy tells him that she still hasn't communicated and the last time they spoke she said she wasn't going to apologize. Obviously, this is because Zordon had given them the order to return to Earth and the Rangers stayed in Safe Haven. Tommy then begins to explain to Jason that he feels that he and Kimberly are drifting apart, as Rangers and as a couple. He also tells her that he just wants her to be okay and then asks for Jason's opinion on what he would do. Jason tells her that he is the least likely to give love advice, but he can kick her ass. The two of them begin fighting to spar, but at that moment a huge explosion is heard, and part of the juice bar is destroyed. Tommy starts communicating with Zordon to find out if they were seeing everything that was going on. Alpha 5 tells him it's Mistressville, and Tommy asks Zordon if the other Rangers are on their way. Zordon tells him not yet, but that he already alerted Billy to the situation, and he is on his way. Then Tommy tells Zordon that they should know that Mistressville didn't come alone. We can see that she arrived with the Green Ranger, which is Matt, but apparently Mistressville brainwashed him. In Safe Haven we can see Kimberly sitting in a dark place and Yale goes to join her. She starts to vent to him and tells him that Tommy hasn't responded all day and that she hasn't been able to communicate with Zordon and Alpha either. She feels that apparently, she didn't know how to handle this situation well, and maybe she made everything worse by not following Zordon's orders. At that moment, Adam appears and tells Kimberly that she needs to go into the room with the other Rangers as everything is getting crazy. Inside the room they begin to listen to the conversation Alpha 1 is having with Robot 11. The Rangers say that it is very sinister, and they don't know if Rita programmed it or just filled it with dark magic. Then they start to hear Alpha say that Mistressville is going to take Dark out and that Safe Haven is inconsequential. Then 11 asks him why come to Safe Haven if it's inconsequential. Then Alpha replies that Mistressville has other priorities, plus she has an infinite army. He also tells her that she is building an army to defeat Zordon and the Rangers. He then tries to talk about the Navigator, but 11 tells him that he won't get his hands on the Navigator they have in Safe Haven. Alpha tells him that this is not the only Navigator within Mistressville's reach. With that last message the Rangers were shocked, as they now know that Rita must be on Earth looking for the other Navigator, and they know that Grace possibly has it, as she said they had found the ruins of the Ark. On Earth in Promethea, Lord Zed throws Trona against the wall and lifts Grace by the neck to force her to release Golder and the others. Then Trona returns with the Navigator in her hands and asks Zed if he knows what it is. He also tells her that now that he is transformed, he can feel its power. Obviously, Zed knows what it is, so Trona tells him that Mistressville is looking for him, so, if he has it, then she will come to him. She also tells him that she is willing to give it to him if he releases Grace. Lord Zed releases Grace and suddenly another alarm starts going off and Zed gets upset as he thinks they are trying to kill him with a headache. Trona explains to him that the alarm is because someone broke through the perimeter, and they realize that Mistressville has arrived. On Earth Tommy asks Jason to leave and try to keep the civilians safe, but Jason doesn't want to leave him alone. The Green Ranger tells Jason to leave as it is useless since he just wants to kill Rangers. Remember that Jason no longer has the powers since he gave them up to stay on Earth to take care of his dad. Jason, very angry, tries to attack the Green Ranger, but he hits him very hard. At that moment, Billy arrives and the first thing he says is to apologize to Matt. At that moment, the Rangers try to morphin, but Matt says that they are not going to wait and starts the attack. Then Matt confesses to the Rangers that they shouldn't wait for the other Rangers to arrive since Finster cut the command center communicators and Kimberly doesn't know they are in trouble. The Rangers begin the attack. Tommy fights Matt and Billy tries to stop the putty patrollers. Tommy tells Matt that he should fight since he knows he belongs in there, but the new evil Matt scoffs. Billy tells Tommy that maybe by destroying his sword they can free him since it was what freed him when he was the Green Ranger under Rita's spells. At Promethea, Mistressville tells Grace to come out and that she knows she is locked up with the Navigator since Matt told her everything. The security of the place tries to stop Mistressville, but they are unsuccessful. Grace and Trona try to escape, although he tells her that they have security protocols for these cases, but she tells him that, if Mistress Vil knows Matt's thoughts, then nothing is going to help because she knows everything. At that moment, Mistress Vil and Vessel manage to get inside, but Lord Zed greets them by telling her that he had already warned her what would happen if they met again. Mistress Vil starts teasing him by telling him that she likes his new look since she doesn't have to keep seeing his brain. Then Zed tells her that he would have crossed the entire galaxy to get his revenge, but she is such a fool that she came to him. At that moment, she gives the order to Vessel to fight Zed and he gets very angry as he wanted to fight her. Lord Zed and Vessel start to fight, and the first thing Zed did was to take away his staff. Despite this, Vessel keeps fighting since he carries a sword on his back. In the battle with the Green Ranger, Matt starts saying crazy things to try to make the Rangers angry, and apparently, he is making Billy angry. Because of this, when Matt tries to attack them, Billy kicks him and then tells Matt that he will never leave him again. In Promethea, Grace and Trona are trying to escape, grateful that Lord Zed is keeping Mistress Vil and Vessel busy. They are both thinking about the latest contingency plan, but suddenly they run into Mistress Vil. In the other battle, Billy tries to keep attacking Matt, but Matt says it's game over. We then see that Matt has Billy on his knees with his sword to his neck about to finish him off, but at that moment an arrow pushes Matt's sword away. Kimberly and Aisha had arrived to help Tommy and Billy. Lord Zed hits Vessel so hard that he breaks his helmet. As this battle happens, we can read Aisha's words telling Matt that they know that underneath that dark magic and underneath that helmet is their friend. While she says that, we can see that Vessel shows his face and Zed is very surprised because he sees Zordon's face. Vessel took this opportunity of Zed's carelessness to attack him very hard. In Safe Haven we can still see Alpha 1 talking to 11, and he tells him that while they are struggling to follow Mistress Vil's plans, she has already advanced to the next point. While Alpha 1 keeps talking, saying many things about Mistress Vil's plans, we can see a person walking through the corridors until we get to the vault where they have all the villains imprisoned in jars. Surprisingly, this person is Lord Draken, who freed Kia, who had been a Blue Omega Ranger and had betrayed the team. Several months ago, on the planet Bizerk, Rita and Alpha 1 were searching for the being they had promised Dark Spectre to be a vessel. Incredibly, this is the body of Zordon, the same one we have known all our lives, and Alpha 1 is confused since Rita had told him that she had locked him in time. She explains to him that the spell she had cast that day separated Zordon's body, and a friend of hers searched for that body to keep it. She also explains that this body is alive, but only has instincts, like a trophy ready to be used, and she is going to put it to good use. Then, she breaks the ice to free Zordon's body and begins to tell him that his existence has the sole purpose of being the vessel of a very powerful being. In the meantime, she is going to turn him into one of the most powerful beings in the universe and then fill him with dark magic. Now on planet Earth, everyone is under attack by Rita's army, and we can see that Zordon's body, called Vessel, is there too. This army is very powerful, and they are destroying the whole Earth mercilessly. Despite this, we can see that Vessel is still walking with a steady course and is ignoring everything that is happening around him. In the battle we can see that there are several Rangers fighting against Matt, who is also using the Zord. Finally, we can see what fate Vessel was looking for, and somehow, he found it. This powerful being has found the Power Rangers Command Center, which is supposedly impossible to enter without a power coin. Despite that, this powerful villain manages to open the doors of the command center easily and enters as if he were a guest. Inside the command center we can see that there is Zordon, Alpha 5, Adam and Rocky. Zordon begins to ask the Rangers for an answer since they had not had any communication, and they tell him that he had to fix everything. At that moment, Adam realizes something unexpected. Vessel had managed to get in and they couldn't believe it. They obviously still don't know that this is Zordon's body, so Vessel removes the protection he has on his face and the Rangers can't believe what they are seeing. The battle begins and Vessel quickly attacks the Rangers, but they defend themselves with blasters. Then, they start attacking with their weapons, but Vessel is very powerful and defeats them both easily. Vessel quickly puts his hand inside Alpha 5 to deactivate it with a single blow. After this, Vessel turns to look at Zordon, something that no one was able to prevent him in all this journey, to reach the maximum leader and possibly the missing part of his body. Zordon is very upset and starts asking him a lot of questions, but we can see that Vessel is very calm and walks towards him. Then he simply touches Zordon's energy tube and they enter into a kind of mind meld, just as happened with Lord Zed when he was wounded. They both have separate bodies and are floating in space. Vessel begins to speak for the first time after a long time and says that he is what Zordon could not be. Zordon is obviously very confused and doesn't know how to begin to understand this whole situation. He starts to go over everything Rita did, so he knows he was right in what he thought. He told Vessel that Rita separated him from his body and then locked him up. In addition to this, he also used that whole situation to turn it around and use it to his advantage now. He is now planning to use his body to give it to Dark Spectre. All these claims of Zordon were confirmed by Vessel, who also told Zordon that despite all of this the emptiness gnaws at him and he is looking for a better host that will suit this body. Zordon starts yelling at him very angrily and tells him that after invading his home, hurting his Rangers and forcing him into that shared consciousness, he basically took his purpose and perverted it. Vessel tries to make it clear to Zordon that the Rangers are fine and that he didn't kill them. This is the first sign that Vessel really is different and is out for redemption. Zordon also tries to tell him that while he was adrift, helpless and twisted in time, he was with a steady body. His own body infused with the darkest magic to give to the worst villain. Vessel tells him he wasn't given a choice, but Zordon tells him he wasn't given a choice either. Then Vessel realizes that in this shared consciousness he doesn't need Zordon's permission to access any thought and any emotion, so he begins to travel. He first begins by traveling back to the first Ranger team, which was led by Grace, and several died in that battle against a Green Pisco Ranger. Zordon tries to tell everything that happened, but Vessel tells him that Alpha 1 had already told him and that he also told him that Zordon is a leader who sacrifices those in his care. Zordon tries to tell him that that was never his intention and that if he could take his place he would have. Vessel tells him that those are his words, but his inaction has cost many more lives. Vessel takes Zordon to an old battle he had against Rita, and at that time he was accompanied by Zartus. In this battle Zordon had the opportunity to end Rita's life, but he chose not to as he had always thought that everyone can redeem themselves. Vessel tries to question him about this thought of redemption after seeing everything that has happened, and Zordon replies that no one is far from redemption, even him. After this, Vessel takes him back to the moment when the emissaries told him that he will never enter the Morphin Grid and then threw him back. Vessel begins to question him about his beliefs since after he sacrificed everything, this is how he was paid. He also tells him that he is weak, useless, a ghost in a tube, and that despite having a lot of power he has wasted it by putting his faith in others. He then makes her an offer and tells her to take his body so they can become one person again. A body full of Morphin Grid power which he can reclaim and fix all the mistakes. Despite this, Zordon rejects her offer, telling her that no matter how much he wants to have a body again, he can feel that this body is filled with Rita's dark magic, so he must find his own way. This rejection makes Vessel very angry, who tells Zordon that after offering him a body full of power to save the universe he has sacrificed so much for, so now he's going to say no. Zordon tells him that he can say no too, even he doesn't have to decide between Dark Spectre, Rita, or even himself. Then, Vessel tries to go to Zordon and tells him that this is the path he is going to choose. Vessel has fucked his body with Zordon. Then, the shared consciousness ends, and he returns to the real world thinking it's all over, but inside him Zordon tells him it's not. Vessel falls to his knees as Zordon tells him that he made his decision, but I made mine. Zordon begins to show him many positive thoughts and tells him that he accepts that he is weak, but he manages to find his strength in those people and will not hesitate no matter the cost. For all that evil that consumes us, there is always hope, redemption, good, and he will always choose that. Then, Vessel starts to scream as he can't handle all those words Zordon is saying to him, and both bodies separate again. Now we can see a very different Vessel, and Zordon tells him that now he is free and can choose his own way wisely. At the end Zordon tells him, "May the power protect you." After Draken releases Kia from the confinement inside the bottle in Safe Haven, she tries to attack him, but is unsuccessful as she no longer has powers. Draken asks her to calm down as he is not the enemy, but she responds by reminding him of everything she lost because of him. Because of this, Draken changes his answer and tells her that he is no longer the enemy. He also tells her that she no longer has her Omega Ranger powers, so she obviously can't fight him, and her best option is to listen to his proposal since he released her because he needs her. After this, Draken takes Kia to a master bow and she thinks he brought her there so she could try to activate it, but she doesn't know how to do it. Still, Draken replies that this is not her purpose, he only brought her there so that she can back him up and help him fight against those who oppose him. At that moment, Kever and Yale, the yellow and blue Omega Rangers, arrive. We should point out that Kia was the blue Omega Ranger, and because of this, she gets very angry because she thinks they gave her Morpher to a cat. At that moment, Kia and Draken get ready to fight. The Omega Rangers starts to attack, but Draken and Kia stop them easily. Then the other Omega Rangers arrive and Kia gets mad at Trini for giving her Morpher to a cat. Draken drags Kia into the archway and then tells Trini to destroy that archway before she gets to him. By this, we assume Draken is referring to Rita trying to get Dark Spectre. In Promethea, Rita drags Grace to take her away, but she doesn't understand why she's taking her too if she already has what she needs. Rita responds by telling him that she's very cunning and isn't going to take any chances. She then tells him about everything it has cost her to get here and tries to play with his mind by mentioning part of Grace and Zordon's story. At that moment, Rita hears someone coming and thinks it's Vessel, but to her surprise it's Lord Zed. The two begin an exchange of words about Lord Zed's new powers, and he also mentions to her how insane it was to use Zordon's body to get Vessel. Rita also tells him that he doesn't know what's coming and that death is going to be mercy. On Earth, the Rangers are still in the middle of the war. Kimberly and Aisha are together trying to communicate with Adam and Rocky, but they were having a battle with Vessel at the time. Then Matt comes up and tells them both that he wants to continue chatting with them, but Kimberly replies that he's just going to tell lies. He then also tells her that they have already fought an evil Green Ranger, so Rita could have been more original. Kimberly starts attacking Matt, and even though he tries to discourage her with words, she still knocks him down only to have the Yellow Ranger attack him again. They are both on the floor and she tries to talk her way into his heart. Matt uses this as an advantage and shows her his face, making her believe that he managed to wake up from the spell but takes advantage of Aisha's carelessness to attack her. In Promethea, Rita and Zed are ready to start fighting, so Rita continues with her sarcasm, but Zed doesn't want to listen to her anymore. Lord Zed attacks first and manages to hurt Rita a little, but she's not even worried and still continues with her sarcasm. Both clash with their powers and generate a big explosion that throws them away. Despite this, they continue fighting, while Grace takes advantage of the moment to save the artifact and escape. In the other battle, Matt continues to fight with the Yellow Ranger as he tries to play with her mind by telling her that maybe she has felt inadequate sometime due to being a replacement like him. He then tells her that maybe this is why she likes him. At the end he asks her if he had ever asked her out on a date, if she would accept. She gets very angry and gives him a hard punch that pushes him away, but then she answers the question quietly, so he doesn't hear her and says yes. Matt is very angry and tells her that he is going to pay for hitting him, but at that moment Rocky and Adam arrive. Because of this, Matt decides to transport to the Dragonzord, and Kimberly tells the Rangers that Tommy has an idea to save Matt from the spell. The Rangers ask the Zords to become the Megazord using the Dragonzord. Matt doesn't understand what is happening, and we get to watch as the Zords combine to become the Megazord with Matt inside. This causes all the Rangers to now be inside the Megazord along with Matt, which makes it easier for them to take the sword from him and then restrain him. Billy grabs the sword and jumps out of the Megazord so Tommy can use Saba to destroy the sword. As we've said in other videos, Saba is very powerful, so she easily destroys the Green Ranger's sword. At Promethea, Grace seeks out Trona to give her the Navigator and then tells her to find a person who can stop Rita. Trona is worried about Grace, but she tells him that he must escape since she is only after her. At that moment, the worst happens. Vessel arrives, and with this the escape attempt is thwarted. In the other part, Lord Zed and Rita continue fighting, and it seems that Lord Zed is starting to defeat Rita even though she keeps her sarcastic attitude, saying that he is not going to defeat her. Zed launches a big attack, but Vessel arrives and stops this attack, which goes back to Zed. Then Rita starts to mock Lord Zed for not being able to get his revenge, but he tells her that he has only postponed. Rita then starts talking to Vessel and asking him about where he was. Vessel doesn't answer her and only shows her that he had caught Grace, so Rita takes this as an answer. She starts talking to Grace and acknowledges that Grace took advantage of the distraction to escape, but unfortunately, today is not the day to give second chances. She then asks Vessel to kill her, but he tells her no. This really surprises Rita, and she asks Vessel to repeat his answer, and he once again tells her no. In the Megazord, the Rangers are still holding Matt, waiting for confirmation from Tommy to find out if he destroyed the sword yet, and then they realize that Matt loses the transformation. The Rangers think they have their friend back, but when Aisha holds out her hand, Matt grabs her tightly by the wrist. He then asks her to step away and then teleports to another location. Meanwhile, Tommy and Billy outside the Megazord start to see all the putty patrollers leave too, and this confuses them a lot. At Safe Haven, Trini starts interrogating Alpha 1 and says something is coming as Draken came through the archway and wants to know why he took Kia. Alpha is surprised as those weren't Rita's orders, so he wants to alert her that Draken is unreliable. Elsewhere, Zack tries to talk to Kever as Kever feels bad about being easily defeated by Draken. Zack tells him that sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, plus he has only been doing this job for a short time. He then tells him not to be curious going into every fight, sometimes fights are going to come his way. As Zack says these words, we can see many ships approaching the planet. The ships begin to approach toward Safe Haven and are full of Rita's soldiers, but what we still don't know is who those soldiers are. Trini suspects something big is coming as Draken had told her to destroy the archway before Rita arrives. This obviously could be a trap for Draken to gain some kind of advantage, but it is a doubt that is very difficult to resolve. No matter what the Rangers do, neither option is not good for them. If they don't destroy the arch, then Rita is going to achieve her goal, but if they destroy the arch, then Draken might have some plan. This exact same thing is what the Omega Rangers are discussing, since Draken entered with Kia through the archway and they don't know why he would want to destroy the only exit door. They are also thinking that Draken might be afraid of what Rita is going to do with the archway, and if Draken is afraid, then something terrible is going to happen. At that moment, the Rangers hear a very loud sound and Robot 11 warns them of a proximity alert. Rita's ships have arrived, and the army began to descend to the planet to begin the invasion. There are many ships that have arrived, which means that this army is huge, and the Rangers are in danger. Robot 11 says that the collision is imminent, and Alpha 1 tells him that he had already warned them that Rita was going to bring an army. The people on the planet try to run for cover and Archon is leading them to help them. Now we can see that part of the army is the Death Ranger, and along with him he has 3 Wild Force Rangers under control. Also, Dane arrived, an old enemy of the Power Rangers, which is accompanied by many putty patrollers. These enemies were very difficult to defeat and are now part of a large army, fighting together to destroy the Rangers. In Promethea, Vessel does not want to obey Rita, which started from his encounter with Zordon, and Rita wants to know what happened. She tells him that he has no choice, he can't say no to her, and asks him who put that idea in his head. Then she asks him if he visited the friend they have in common. Obviously Rita means Zordon, but before Vessel could answer her, she gave him a hard punch in the face. This blow was so strong that it managed to break his protective mask. With this we know that Rita is possibly more powerful than Vessel, and he still has not been able to separate from her control. Then, Rita continues to punish him with her power, makes him suffer, and tells him that he will not say anything. Grace thought she could hope that Vessel would protect her, but now she is very worried about what is happening. On top of this, she has just learned that Vessel's body is Zordon's body, and Rita confirms to her that this was once his body, but they have no soul. Rita explains to him that from the moment that body was awakened it only had the purpose of being a vessel, and now it is not going to turn back. At that moment, Matt tells Rita that he came back, and she replies sarcastically saying that it's a no-brainer. Grace is surprised to see Matt, and Rita tells her that he is now obeying her and that it is because she brought him that he is still breathing. Grace tries to apologize to Matt, but he talks back rudely, telling her not to apologize to him ever. Rita is desperate and feels they are wasting time to start the ritual. She then asks Matt to bring Grace as she possibly wants to see what is going to happen. The Rangers have arrived at Promethea as they managed to track the energy from the Green Ranger's coin there. They are confused as they think Matt couldn't have just disappeared, but Tommy tells them that they should be alert as Matt must be nearby. Then, Lord Zed shows up and tells the Rangers that they are always failing, that they are very predictable, and were late as usual. We can also see that Golder is holding Tarona's body, and the Rangers are surprised that Lord Zed now has the powers of a Ranger. Now, the Rangers try to check on Tarona's health, while Lord Zed says to consider this a peace offering, but warns them that this is a temporary truce. He also warns them that they will never be able to defeat him with this new transformation. Kimberly tries to challenge him and tells him that if he is as powerful as he says, then why doesn't he eliminate them now? Lord Zed replies that he has other priorities, and they must have them too. He then explains to them that Rita took Grace, Vessel, and the Green Ranger and is going to attack Safe Haven to use the bow, but she is going to fail as he is going to squeeze her neck to her last breath. Kimberly then asks if they are going to let them escape just like that, but this causes an argument between her and Tommy due to him telling her that she is now asking after not wanting to listen to anyone. The other Rangers stop the fight and say they should go to Safe Haven, but Trona tells them not to go to Safe Haven. This really confuses Billy, but Trona tells him that she is not going to Safe Haven since there is more than one arc. Rita traveled to the Bermuda Triangle along with Matt, Grace, and Vessel to find the other arch that Trona mentioned. This arch was fortified and heavily secured with security gates, guards, and codes. Grace starts mentioning all this to Rita to discourage her, but she quickly says that's not a problem and then magically opens the door. Inside the place we can see the arch, which was broken at one end, but at the same time it was held by some tubes that apparently gave it energy. Rita tells Grace that for her to be only human, she is still impressed by her tenacity and that she should celebrate the discovery they made together. Grace is very angry, so she takes the opportunity to see Rita had approached her and punched her in the face hard. She then tells her that this is not a triumph and starts to play with her mind, telling her that she has always been used, she was used by Lord Zed, and she was also used by her father. Obviously, Rita couldn't stay calm with these words and hit Grace hard while telling her to be quiet. After this, she asks the Green Ranger to get her out of his sight. Matt tries to hold her down while telling her that she must survive to see what will happen as Rita wants witnesses, but Grace tells him that she still sees goodness in him and that the young man she knows would never give up so easily. She also tells him that she knows he's going to blame himself for everything that's going to happen, but she wants to let him know that he shouldn't. In Safe Haven, the Omega Rangers are going to face Rita's army, but Kever is worried because he thinks they won't be able to take on so many soldiers. Trini tells him that they are going to do what they always do, protect the innocent, protect the Ark and never give up. It's Morphin time. The battle has begun and Archon joins in to defend the planet. The Death Ranger was going to confront him, but at that moment Trini arrived with her sword and asks Archon to take the people to a safe place. The Death Ranger is surprised now because Trini is the Red Ranger and the last time they had seen each other she was the Yellow Ranger, but she tells him that last time he no longer had a body, so things change. Dane is terrorizing the locals, but Zack arrives to save them and the two start having a conversation about the last time they saw each other. Then, Zack kicks him in the face hard and tells him that the Rangers are going to surprise him. Elsewhere, Kever and Yale are having a tough battle against the Wild Force Rangers, which were controlled by the power of the Death Ranger. Kever was trying to communicate with Eleven, but for some reason Eleven was not responding and we can see that Alpha 1 was ready. At that moment, something unexpected happened, a giant tail hit hard on the ground. It was a new version of Serpentera and Lord Zed was controlling the Zord. Golder asks Lord Zed for permission to let him go and destroy Rita's soldiers. Babu asks to stay inside the Zord to provide moral support, but Lord Zed asks them to shut their mouths and look for Rita. Babu explains to Lord Zed that she is not in Safe Haven. The mighty Morphin Power Rangers are at the same place Rita is, but they can't get in because of all the putty patrollers outside. They then use the power blaster to open the security door and try to find Matt, but are obviously in for a surprise. The Rangers had arrived late. Rita had already started the ritual and was using the Zeo crystals. Vessel was ready to be used and, in the archway, a dark energy can be seen that Rita is calling out. The words that Rita is saying in this ritual are, and from this infection, I create a way for you to dominate and for all those who fear you to be invaded. The place has been filled with a dark energy, a purple light, and Matt steps in so the Rangers can't interrupt Rita. Dark Spectre has arrived, and the darkest hour has begun.